Have you ever found an old family document and just stared at it, wondering, what's the real story here? Well, that's exactly what we're doing today. We're going to take this dusty, kind of formal legal paper, the Appalachian marriage bond, and turn it into a story. A story about love, about law, and about family. So let's dive in and see what secrets we can uncover. No lace, no flowers, just ink, obligation, and hope. Man, that line just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures what these documents were all about. See, for so many Appalachian families, this wasn't about the big white wedding we think of. This was the real starting point, a foundational moment, a promise on paper that kicked off a whole new family line. So to really get this, we've got to go back in time. I want you to picture this scene with me. We're in a county clerk's office, let's say it's somewhere around 1820. You can almost see it, right? A young man, probably got some worn-out boots on, standing in front of the clerk. And he's not by himself. He's got a kinsman with him, a relative, who's there to, vouch for him. They dip a pen in ink, they sign a document, and that signature, it's so much more than just a name. It's this formal act that creates the very first record of a family's beginning, a paper trail that we can still follow today. Okay, so what was this piece of paper they were signing? What exactly is a marriage bond? Let me tell you, it was a whole lot more than just some government paperwork. At its heart, a marriage bond was basically a financial guarantee. The groom and another guy, called a surety or a bondsman, were putting money on the line. They were promising that there was absolutely no legal reason the marriage couldn't happen. It's kind of like they were posting bail, promising the government, hey, this is all legit, we swear. All right, this is super important because a lot of researchers get tripped up here. A marriage bond is not a marriage license, and it is absolutely not proof that a wedding actually happened. Think of it like this. The bond is the financial promise. That promise lets the clerk give them a license, which is like the official permission slip. And then the return is the proof from the minister saying, yep, I married them. They're three totally separate pieces of the puzzle, and you gotta know the difference. So what kinds of impediments were they worried about? What legal trouble could they get into? Well, the bond was there to prevent a few big ones. First, you couldn't already be married to somebody else. No bigamy. Second, you couldn't be too closely related, by blood. And third, if either of them were underage, they had to have permission from their parents. This whole document was really the community's way of making sure everyone played by the rules. But here's the thing, it's not just about the bride and groom. There's another name on that paper. And for a genealogist, for a family historian, this name is often the secret key, the one that unlocks everything. I'm talking about the bondsman. So who was this bondsman? I mean, think about it. Why would someone be willing to put up their own money, their own reputation for this couple? The answer isn't just a name on a piece of paper. It's like a genealogical superpower. Seriously. Yeah, the bondsman was never just some random guy they pulled off the street. This was someone they trusted, someone deeply connected to the family. A lot of the time, it was the bride's father or brother, or maybe an uncle, or even the guy who was about to become the groom's brother-in-law. Sometimes it was a really close neighbor or a family friend. That signature is a huge clue about who is in their inner circle. And this, right here, is where the magic happens. That third signature, it takes this document from being about just two people and turns it into a map of their entire social world. When you start researching the bondsman, you can suddenly find hidden relationships. You can prove who someone's parents were. You can even track how whole groups of families moved from one place to another. It's incredible. Okay, so we get what these bonds are, and we get why they're so valuable. But how do you actually use one when you find it in your own family tree research? Let's break it down step by step. First things first, you gotta make sure marriage bonds were even a thing in the county and the time period you're looking at. Step 2, like we talked about, you have to separate the bond from the license and the return. They're different things. 3, read every single word. Get all the names, the dates, even the dollar amount of the bond. 4, and this is the big one, you've got to research that bondsman. And finally, number 5, and this is absolutely critical, you have to connect the dots. Compare what you found with land records, tax lists, court records, anything you can find to see the whole story. Let's look at a real-world example. Imagine you're digging into your family history in early Tennessee, and you hit a classic roadblock. The courthouse burned, and all the marriage records before 1825 are just gone. Total nightmare. And you're stuck trying to figure out the maiden name of your ancestor, Sarah McCoy. So you start going through these boxes of old loose papers at the archives, and you find it. This absolute gem, a marriage bond from 1821.
You see the groom, John McCoy, but then, crucially, you see the bride's name, Sarah Carter. And then you look down at the bondsman's name, William Carter. Whoa, that is a massive, massive clue.
So what do you do next? You follow step 5. You start digging into other records, like land deeds. And there it is. You find out that this William Carter owned property right next door to the McCoys. And just like that, boom, the puzzle pieces just snap into place. That bond didn't just give you Sarah's maiden name. It proved these two families were neighbors, making it almost certain that William was her father or maybe her guardian. That one piece of paper solved a mystery that the official records couldn't touch. See, this story about Sarah McCoy and William Carter, it really shows us that these aren't just dry documents with names and dates. They're about real people, real connections, and the communities they lived in. So why does this stuff matter so much? Because what these bonds do is capture this really unique moment in time. This is the point where something deeply personal, two people's love for each other, steps out into the public square. It's where love meets the law, where personal hope gets a stamp of approval from the whole community. It's really a snapshot of how our ancestors made their way in the world.
And when you get right down to it, that's what these fragile, old pieces of paper really are. They're a bridge built out of ink and a sense of duty, connecting a promise made in some dusty courthouse 200 years ago directly to us, today, as we try to figure out who we are and where we come from.
So I'll leave you with this question. What's hiding in your family's paper trail? What amazing stories of ink, obligation, and hope are just sitting there, waiting for you to find them?